So I started a Moneyball save with Birmingham City, but the save takes place 100 years in the future. This meant when I was scouting for new players to buy in the first season, I had no idea about the market. I didn't know any of the best players. In fact, I didn't know any of the players at all. So I used data to find bargains, and it worked. We managed to get ourselves promoted to the Premier League via the playoffs at the first time of asking. But now it goes up a level because, well, we're in the Premier League, we're predicted to finish bottom, and I still don't know any players. So I suppose we better dive back into the data. Come on. Okay then, welcome back to our Birmingham Moneyball save in the future. It's now 21-26, so we're 101 years in the future at this stage, and we've just been promoted back to the Premier League. I say back to the Premier League. It was a long time since Birmingham City were in the Premier League, both in real life and specifically in this save. It's an even longer time. This is our situation. We have got, there's me as the manager. We have our key player, Abel, he was unbelievable last year, wasn't he? He was a big reason. He plays on the left-hand side for us as an inside forward. I would not be surprised, by the way, if we struggle to hold on to him for too much longer. He's valued at about £9 million, but he's got a release clause at about £29 million. And at the moment, we've got teams like Atletico Madrid, Celta Vigo, and Real Madrid all lurking around him. So a big thing is going to be trying to hold on for him because this guy is sensational. If I go to his bar thing here and just show you, I always compare him to a forward rather than as a winger, which is where he plays. But his numbers are just through the roof. We've started this second season, by the way. We've played 4 games. He scored 5 and got 3 assists. He is just so good. It is proof. He is the perfect proof, actually, that data-driven signings in Football Manager actually work. We picked him up for £1.5 million from Levante after he had a okay season for Levante in the second division in Spain for them, but some of his underlying numbers, like his dribbles and things like that, looked really good, and that gave us the nudge to go and sign him. And then look what he did for us. There is not a player in the entire save that has better numbers from last season, I don't think. He's got to be right up there. And I'm hoping we can hold on to him because he's made a good start to this second season here. So he's a great example of what we're trying to achieve here. But then there's other great players in this team too. We have our left back and right back duo of Takamura and Nakayama. Nakayama last year got himself 27 assists in the league. And a big part of whether we'll be successful this year is if he can reproduce anything like that back in the Premier League now. He's wonderful, and we picked him up for £2.1 million. And the rest of the team looks like this. It's pretty settled, but of course, I've done some transfers. Now, we were given a budget of £30 million back in the Premier League. And even though I've done lots of transfers and I've signed lots of players, and I think the squad looks pretty good, even despite all of this, we are predicted to finish bottom of the league. We're 1,000 to 1. That did used to be 2,000 to 1. So we have improved it. But staying in the league, not getting relegated, is very much the aim for this season. There will be no doubts about that. Actually, on the screen right now, look, I didn't realise it does this, but if you click it, it does show you the rundown of the transfers for the season. We have brought in 4 players here and sold players. Well, there's 6 players going out there for a decent amount of money as well, actually. I've tried to. It says the net transfer spend is £6 million. I've tried to keep it so that we're only spending sort of what we're earning and trying to be cost effective because you can find bargains using these methods. And I think for it to be a Moneyball spend, we will speculate a little bit, but not too much. I think we should be looking to try and turn a profit wherever possible, that type of thing. Let me show you then what I've done in the window by starting. There is a few actually extra ones from that one there. If we go back a season, let me show you the players that I've sold first of all, and then you can understand why I've signed some certain players, why I'm, positions on the pitch that I'm trying to replace, that type of thing too. So let's have a look at the end of last season. Any dates on here that have 21-26 are this second season rather than the first season. Really annoying that they are going to overlap, but because the data doesn't carry over for a new season, I have to do all of the transfer business quite quickly because I want to use that data to learn who's been really good the previous season. So lots of them will be attached on at the end of this one here, which is just, it is annoying, but I know that you guys understand that anyway. So it shouldn't be too much of an issue, hopefully. These are the players that I've brought in. Now, there are a lot of them, and I did talk about in the last video about doing a lot in the first season and then maybe slowing down the transfer recruitment so that we can really get to know the players. I am still meaning to do that. However, our squad was so weak. We had loads of players that were just seemed really rubbish, especially when you get into the Premier League and then you go and ask your coaches how good a player is. These players are barely League One quality according to our coaches, and that wasn't going to fly in the Premier League. So a lot of these signings aren't necessarily starters, but I did have to bring them in because we needed to flesh out the squad a little bit. Let me talk you through the main big hitters and then any other players that you can see on this list here. Players like Lee Ford are going to be backups. They're going to be subs for us this season. And what I've tried to do with the subs is I've tried to bring in homegrown players, English and UK players, because I think that's the best way to fill out a squad, basically. So we've got like a 23-year-old Englishman here who was playing for Wickham, who signed for 800k. I've gone with data again. He scored lots of goals in League One last season. And I think to be a backup, he's only 23. He could get better. I feel like that kind of fits. We're still going to use the same methods, but these are just going to be the backups in the squad. That goes for Sully Mitchley from Man City for 110k. 22-year-old Englishman. He's 6'6", so obviously that's why I wanted to sign him, really. But he's a striker. Can also play right back, which is just odd, really. If you go to this, he has played a game at some point as a right back in his career. Just odd. But anyway, he comes in. Same can be said for Gareth Doyle-Hayes. He's an Irishman who plays in the centre of midfield. We signed him on a free transfer from the Irish team Derry City. Again, you can see why I've signed these players, why they popped up when I did the data exports using FM Data Lab, which I will show you again when it comes to some of our main targets for this summer. He had a great season for them. Look, got assists, got a really high average rating. So that's why we've signed him on a free transfer. There's also Billy Henderson, who I think, is he the backup left back? He is indeed the backup left back. He is Scottish and he came from Ipswich, where he didn't have a great season or didn't do much with Ipswich, but he's one of the cheaper homegrown players that we could sign. And he's going to be a backup for left back. And then that's pretty much it for the backup. Jerome Gale is another striker option. I think that's pretty much it for the backups. So now I want to get into like the main starting signings that I've made. To put those into context, we did sell a few players this summer and they've sold for quite a lot of money, actually. I sold our starting central midfielder, David Hinostroza. He was a big part of us getting promoted. He started centre mid for the whole of last season. You remember I was rotating him with Arnau as the number 10 in the team. He's gone for £14.5 million, the Chinese team Zhejiang. And with that money, obviously, I needed to go and replace him, which we'll get onto in a second. I also sold Mohsen Sharifi. If you remember, he was unhappy. He wanted to leave. We managed to get £9 million for him from Ajax. That was actually his release clause. We maybe could have got a bit more there. I need to be a bit careful, I think, with release clauses. A lot of players, it seems, at this stage in a save, 100 years in, it's basically every player that comes in wants a release clause. So I need to be a bit careful that I don't go too low on those, because as you get promoted to the Premier League, the values can shoot up. And then I think that kind of happened with Sharifi, but I think £9 million is still a good amount of money for him. I also sold Sastra for £1.9 million. And that's it for the sales at the moment. The window has just closed, by the way. There won't be any more business, at least until January. But the main thing to take from here is that Hinostroza and Sharifi were both midfielders. We needed to go and bring in some extra midfielders, and one definitely to go and take the starting spot in the team. So that's what I went and did. I signed Junior Diamande from West Ham for £7 million. You can see how he's done so far at the start of this season. If we just put in as a, what should we put him as? Attacking, I suppose attacking midfielder rather than defensive midfielder. He's sort of in the middle between the both of those, really. But we'll go attacking because he's not a DM, definitely not. He's naturally a Metzala look. So on here, you can see what he offers just in the 3 games that he's played so far. But it was his data from last season, was playing for West Ham in the Championship, that attracted me really to his signing. I think he's worth a lot more than the £7 million that we paid for him, after he scored 7 goals, got 8 assists, and got a play of the match and got an over 7 average rating, which is pretty much my cutoff point, I think. I'm only really looking for players that have at least a 7 average rating, because I think it's a very easy, holistic metric to sort of judge a player by in Football Manager, isn't it? They get given an average rating in a game. The ones that have the higher ones are usually the better performers. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? But specifically, let me show you some of his data on FM Data Lab over here. Once again, this site will be linked in the description of today's video. It is so useful for what we're trying to do here. I use the game to go and filter through and find a load of targets for central midfield. And in the end, I came up with a list of 7 candidates that I thought stood out the most. They were Guilherme Santos, Villagra, Dow, Marti, Diamande, who we ultimately ended up signing, Thomas Acuna, and a youngster called Carlo Igor Bogovic. These were the 7 players that were within value ranges. I mean, Guilherme Santos was maybe a little bit too expensive. I don't know if it shows it on here. He plays for West Brom in the Championship, but he was quite expensive. But I thought maybe his value could come down once the takeover. It didn't. He was maybe the only one that was out of our budget. The rest of them were pretty much in the budget. And a note as well, Julian Villagra was very cheap, and then the tick over happened and I went to go sign him and suddenly he was really expensive. Otherwise, I probably would have gone for him. He looked really good and our scout said that he had loads of potential as well. However, maybe one for the future perhaps, but not one for this summer. Let me show you, though, why I ended up going for Junior Diamande based on some of the metrics that I was looking for. So he's going to play as our number 8, the central midfielder in our team. So if you scroll down the options that you get given here, one of the options is just to look for some of the main metrics for being a creative midfielder. And this is a metric that is a lot of different stats combined together, all of which are important for being a creative midfielder. So these ones are really useful. I find them quite useful on this list of metrics to put onto your charts here. Creative midfielder was a good one. And then something else that I really want for a midfielder. And I did look through loads of things. And if you use just the table, you can actually scroll through and have a look at all of these things with all of the stats on here. Once you just pop them on, look, you can put like goals, assists, you can put them all in here and you can see who rates highest out of all of these on here. Straight away, look, you can see Junior Diamande. He's got lots of greens going across here to show that he's actually doing quite well just on even just these metrics that I'm looking at. If you compare them to other players that are going to be patchy and have great stats here, but not so good data in other places, he tracks pretty well across all of them. And I've only clicked on their goals and assists on there, but it really breaks it down into all of these different subcategories. Back to the chart though, because I think this is the best way for me to identify the players that I want, basically, because it's really obvious to then hover over the different players and see which ones are the best, basically. So creative midfielder, and I think it was progressive passes was another thing that I was looking for on here. And I think it was chances created per 90 that I was looking for. Obviously, we want our midfielder to be a creator in there. So I think if you go create chances created per 90, you have the players tracking here. These purple dots are the players. There is one player that stands out the very most ahead of every other player on there, and that is Junior Diamande. You'll see he is 100th percentile for being a creative midfielder. He's also 100th percentile for chances created per 90. And he's got a 7.04 average rating. We know that he scored goals. We know that he's got assists in there. He was just the standout option of these midfielders on here, which is why I went and spent £7 million to go and sign him in game. We'll have a look at his profile in game in a second. But before we do that, another thing that I had noticed whilst looking at this and analysing all the data using FM Data Lab was that there was another player on here, not Guilherme Santos, who ended up being too expensive. You see his transfer value there, look, 18 to £22 million. Instead, it was this man here, Carlo Igor Bogovic, who's only 18 years old and was playing for Dinamo Zagreb. Now, you have to massively take this with a pinch of salt because he'd only played a couple of games. It was only a sample size of 167 minutes. However, the fact that he just popped up and looked pretty good on here, and our scouts liked him and said that he had a lot of potential, I decided actually I'd sign both of these and kind of take a punt on Bogovic because he'd popped up in the data, and also go with the more sure thing, which is Junior Diamande. And actually, with Junior Diamande, you can go and change it to loads of different things in here. XG, look, he still comes out really strongly in XG. You could change it to progressive passes per 90. He still comes out really strongly on there. 71st percentile rather than 100. Guilherme Santos actually came out really well on that one. But overall, it doesn't really matter. It didn't really matter which of these metrics you chose. Junior Diamande was coming out as one of the best ones on there. Full stop. So I did, of course, sign him. This is his profile now as we are heading into our second season at the club. He's made a good start, 3 appearances and a 7.33. You can see some of his attributes here. Look, he's got really good balance, really good first touch technique, really good crossing technique and passing technique, which is probably why he creates so many of those chances. He also doesn't have loads of these tiny red circles for attributes, which tells me that he's quite well-rounded, you'd probably say. And he also looks okay on his pros and cons as well. Annoyingly, consistency is a thing that isn't particularly good. He's fairly inconsistent, something obviously you will look out for, but there is actually some good ones. He loves big matches, for example, and his personality is quite good, etc, etc. Hopefully, though, we've done a good job with identifying him, and he's going to be a bit of a stalwart in our midfield. I did also, as I mentioned, sign Carlo Igor Bogovic. Initially, I've signed him on a loan just because he wasn't actually interested in signing permanently, because he'd only just signed a contract with Dinamo Zagreb. I hope, actually, that we'll be able to sign him quite quickly. His value is really low, and I think what I will do is a month or two, probably ready for January, I'll probably sign him permanently, and then we can get him into our team from there. He's going to be a backup. He's going to be a sub for us anyway. Only, as I say, 18 years old. So he's very useful, like the look of him. And that was the main bit of real analysis that I did this summer. However, I did do a few other signings too, which I need to show you. The big one, our biggest signing, our record signing of the save so far, was that we did sign Harry Freeman permanently. If I was going to go look for a striker that had really strong data, I mean, I wouldn't get much better than Harry Freeman, who scored 32 goals for us last year in the Championship. So I decided it was a bit of a no-brainer. We're now in the Premier League. There was a chance to make that loan permanent for about £15 million. I think it was like £7 million up front and then and then the rest of it in add-ons in future installments. So it kind of made sense financially, also because we know he's really good. We've seen the proof of that. We've got the data set because he played for us, didn't he? So he cost us £15 million. Diamande for 7. Bogovic on a loan initially. I also did sign this guy, Luis Espinosa, and I'll show you the reason for that in a second, but we'll come back to it. There is another player that I want to show you because I did quite a lot of data on this guy as well, and that is the signing of Santiago Rivas, who is a 24-year-old, 6-foot central defender from Spain. He's got under 21 caps for Spain, and he was last year playing for Getafe in La Liga. Straight away, that's a good sign for me. He's playing in the top division in Spain. We're now in the Premier League. He started pretty much every game, look, for Getafe last year, so injury record isn't something to be worried about either. Also, though, he did pop up really nicely in the data. Let me show you. Similar to the central midfielders, I made a shortlist of centre-backs based on some of the filters that I was using in game. I was doing player searches, filtering by things like average rating, using the views that are provided by FM Data Lab, where you can then go and filter by a load of different things and sort by different places and things. I ended up coming up with this list of 13 players that were suitable. They were in the right value range. They were interested in joining. That's one thing to consider as well. You can find the best data players in the world, but if they're not interested in joining newly promoted Birmingham, it's a waste of time. So definitely do use your filters in the game first of all, then extract a bit of a shortlist is the best way that I've found to do this. There were these 13 players, and if we go to our chart over here and have a look for what I want for a centre-back, there is also an option for a defensive or a creative defender. Now I decided on here, let's go with just a defensive defender, because basically I just want my defender to be really good at defending. I also, you know me, want them to be good in the air. So I also like to go for this one here. Headers 1%. Are they going to win their aerial duels, their aerial battles? If you were to do this, you then get this graph here. And if you go all the way across to the very best defensive defender and a pretty well-performing headers 1%, you have this man at the end here, which is Santiago Rivas. Now, this is why I signed him. He was only £4.7 million when we did that export there. And also, crucially, he'd been playing in La Liga. Something you will get when you're exporting players is an amazing performer that plays in the Thai second division. And if you're performing really well in that league, is that as good as performing okay in the championship? It's just not, is it? They're not really comparable, which, by the way, I spoke to the people at FM Data Lab, and that is something that is coming in the future, where there will be a bit of a multiplier based on which league they play in. So you'll be able to, so the data that you're getting will also reflect what league they're playing in as well, which could be a bit of a game changer. Hopefully that comes in soon as well. But Santiago Rivas was the best option on here by a mile, as you can see. Based on this, I pulled the trigger, bought him for £4.7 million, and he's going to be one of our starting centre-backs. And the plan was to start him alongside Danny Ogle. Now, Danny Ogle scored loads of goals for us last year. He's massive, and he's Australian, and he scores goals. But he broke his leg. So I did think we need to bring in a few extra players to come in in case he comes back and he's not quite the same player anymore, which is why I went for Yusuf Al-Husseini, who was only very cheap but had a good season at Osasuna. Similarly, used the data to find him 700k. He's come in as an option. And then also, as you saw before, Luis Espinosa on loan from Bayern Munich. Now, the reason we brought him in is because our scouts found him. I asked them to sign me a loan signing. In fact, it wasn't actually the scouts. It was going to Director of Football, suggesting transfer targets. I went to centre back. I went to a loan player. They suggested me some players on here. So sometimes it is as simple as that. And actually, I think we should go with a data-driven approach for the majority, especially players that are going to be starters. But if you want to fill out the rest of your squad, you do have staff in game that can help you with signings. You have your scouts, etc. I'm using my scouts as well. What I'm often doing is going to my scouting center, looking at which players are scouted, exporting these players based on their positions, and then analyzing some of their data to see who's available there. Use all of the tools that you've got to do your recruitment. And that's what I've been doing. And I think we've done a good job with this window. I think we're ready for the Premier League. The aim, of course, is just to try and stay up. I think there's one or two other players that I need to tell you about. I signed a young attacking midfielder to probably be a backup called Boyar Sola, who's hopefully just going to be useful for us. He was an under-20 international for Spain, which tells me he probably was at some point pretty good. And that, I think, is the squad as a whole. The team, when it's all together, looks like this. It's Keedle in goal with Nakayama and Takamura as the fullbacks, Ogle and Rivas when Ogle's back fit, Campoari as our defensive midfielder, Diamande in that midfield that we've just learned all about, Arnau as the 10, Abel on the left-hand side, the superstar of our team. By the way, we've played 4 games. He scored 5 goals, as I showed you earlier. He is a superstar. Barry Sarr up front, we're going to hope that the data-driven approach to sign him in the Championship works in the Premier League as well. And then Harry Freeman as our other striker with these guys on the bench. And the squad, I think, is looking pretty good. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know what you think of that as a window as a whole, the data that we've looked at. Let me know if as well, by the way. I really want to hear from you guys. Are you doing a save like this yourself? I love the comments when you guys do a save based on something that you've seen me do in a video. But like the multi-club one, so many people have reached out to say, I'm doing a multi-club save. It's amazing, isn't it? It is. And by the way, on the multi-club thing, I know lots of you have asked me what's happened to that as a series. That's my Twitch save, which means I can't bring more videos out on it until we've played longer on stream. So probably when we get to the end of the next season, I'll make another video and then we'll keep them coming that way. But there's going to be a bit of a gap until the next video, basically. But the multi-club series is ongoing. It's just my stream save. Whereas this is all for video. So I can fly through and really dedicate time to it in a way that a stream save I can't quite do, if that makes sense. Anyway, this is our squad. And as you will have seen, we have made a start to our season with 3 games into our Premier League campaign. And amazingly, really, we've gone unbeaten so far. We've won 2 games. We beat 2 teams that have come up from the Championship from last year. The 2 teams that finished above us in the league last year, which was West Ham. We played them on the opening day and beat them 4-0. Harry Freeman scored a hat-trick. And then Sully Mitchley, who played in this game ahead of Barry Sarr, who was injured, scored a goal as well. And then in the second game, we had Cardiff, which I feel like we've had a good start to the season, an easy start to the season. It will get a lot tougher, I'm pretty sure. But we drew with them away from home. I'm all right with that, actually. If we draw our away games, win our home games, we were super close to winning this as well. Look, a 93rd minute equaliser from Cardiff is just a bit annoying, but Abel scored 2 goals in that one. And then we played the other promoted team, the one that won the league, if you remember. Preston were an amazing team. We beat them 4-3. This time it was us that got the late goal. It was Harry Freeman with a 95th minute winner to beat them, which gives us a really good start to the season. We've also beaten Sunderland 5-0 in the EFL Cup when Abel got himself a hat-trick. So we're in a really good spot. What I'm going to have to go and do now, though, is keep playing games, and it's going to get harder. We've got Arsenal away, we've got Liverpool away coming up, we've got Man City coming up away from home, we've got Newcastle away, all before I come back probably around this point at the start of the January window, because we may well have to do a bit more business. I'll see you though at about the halfway point. Okay, so it is the 31st of December 21-26. We're heading into the January transfer window where I'm not sure if we're going to do any business yet. We do have money left over. I realised I didn't show you the transfer budgets at the end of that window. We've got £23 million to go and spend and a load of wage budget still available. We got given quite a lot of money and I stuck most of it into the wage budget because I went on a bit of a run of extending some of our contracts. I've actually just show you by the squad screen here. Look, the contracts are now expiring. We have a few that expire at the end of next season, but some of the big names in there, players like Barry Sarr and Harry Freeman, Campoire, I've managed to extend until 21-31. And then there's a few players like Kavanagh Keedle who's got an extension on the top of that. A lot of these, actually, if I go to contract on here, and if I show you that a few of them I've added the optional extension to extend them a little bit longer as well. So like Keedle and Campoire both had 3 years. And then these guys, it says they've got 1, but they're actually on loan. One thing I do need to tell you about is Carlo Igor Bogovic. I said I was going to go and do this. I've signed him permanently. He joins actually in the summer when his loan ends. He's joining for £2 million, and I'm just happy to do that. He hasn't played loads. It's 7 appearances, all of them off the bench. But that just goes back to what we talked about in the summer window about wanting to take a chance on him, basically. But heading into this window, I'm not sure if we're going to do any business. I suppose really it depends whether we get any bids for our players. We do have a bit of interest, and I'll show you how we've done so far, obviously, in a second. These are the stats of the players, by the way. But before that, we have interest in Danny Ogle. Henan Songshan Longmen, who are a Chinese team, are interested in signing Ogle. He is valued at about £10 million. He does, however, have a release clause of £10 million, which makes me a little bit worried because he's at that value already and he does have a team wanting him. We might need to think about replacing him in this January, in this winter transfer window. So keep an eye on that one, and I'll be back at the end of January if I do any business. Otherwise, we'll be back probably at the end of the season afterwards. The big one though, and this has been on off for, well, since the start of this season, is interest in Abel. At the moment, it's Al Batin, a Saudi team that want to sign him, and I completely agree with them why they want to sign him. He is phenomenal as a player. What a man. 22 appearances, 13 goals, 11 assists. Now in the Premier League as well. His value's up to £13 million. He has got that £29 million release clause on there. I just really hope that we can keep him. But if a team makes a bid, he's just going to go, because especially if it's a Saudi team, they're going to offer him a massive contract, aren't they? And he's our best player by a long, long way. Even just going by some of these star ratings, of course, we don't quite know how accurate they are. But if I show you on here, look as well, going by our coach's opinion of our players, Abel is that guy. Look, 4.5 stars or circles on this one here, and then all the way up to 5 circles if you want to look at his potential on that as well. We know that he's a really good player. I'm also looking at the potential of other players here. Without knowing attributes, it's still useful to have a look at what our staff thinks in terms of their potential. You look at Campori's got great potential, Farisar's got good potential, Abel, as I mentioned there, and also down here Bogovic, who we're signing on a permanent, has got decent potential according to our coaches at the club anyway, which again I'm also trying to improve constantly. One thing as well that I have tried to improve a lot that is very slow going is some of the facilities. It's mainly the youth recruitment that needs lots of work. It's above average and only good academy coaching on there. I feel like maybe we can actually go and ask for that again here. If I go to the board, can I ask for facilities? I can do ask for training. Finances, is it youth coaching on here? Increase the youth coaching budget. Let's see if we can get that done as well, because we do need to keep working on that. But barring any transfer business, we're just ticking along relatively nicely in this season here. We're 14th in the Premier League, and if you consider that we were predicted to finish bottom, I'm okay with this. It's not going to be one of those seasons where a team comes up and suddenly they're in the European places and they're suddenly right towards the top of the league, which can happen in Football Manager. We haven't quite been able to do that, even after our really good start. We are 14th after 19 games, exactly halfway through. It's only 6 wins, but 6 wins is enough to get you, about 20 points on the board there. So, well, 18 points plus 4 draws here. So we've got 22 points, only 1 win in our last 5 games. But I think we're just about okay. We're 5 points clear of the relegation zone with a game in hand as well. I think we're going to be okay. If I show you the results on here, look, it's not been a great December, but it was a really good November where we didn't lose a game in November, beat Chelsea as well, drew away at Man City. I said it was going to get harder, didn't I, in terms of the games that we had to play. We had Liverpool away from home, lost 4-1. We had Arsenal away from home, lost 5-3. We score a lot of goals. We do score a lot of goals. We concede a lot of goals too. We beat Manchester United 6-1. That is our best result of the save so far. 6-1 win there. They did have 10 men, which probably explains it a little bit, but a massive win for us, and then 3 losses on the bounce since then. We lost at home to Hull City recently, but they're actually quite good. Hull are in the top 7. Villa are top of the league this year. The winners, by the way, and I know that there is so much that I could share with you about this save, like who's won all the Ballon d'Ors, who's won more of the Premier Leagues. If I go to the past winners here, it's annoyingly predictable who's won the Premier League over these 100 years. It's Liverpool, City. Newcastle have got a few in there, but look how many City have actually won here. It's actually outrageous. Just going down, it's Liverpool, City, mainly Liverpool and City. Chelsea had a bit of a spell there. Chelsea had a go here. All the way back, look, to pretty much the modern day here, look, where it's Man City. Not loads changed. Even in the top 3s, it's kind of like Arsenal and Chelsea that you're seeing working their way in there. I want to actually see how many Premier Leagues have Manchester City actually won. They've won 65 Premier League titles. 65 for City. How many for Liverpool then? Imagine that. Is this our future? 49 for Liverpool. And I assume Manchester United, are they still down on... I can't actually see if they've won it any times here. Are they still on 20 then? I can't even find them on here. Manchester United have won... 20 times. 0 times since then. That is outrageous. 49 for Liverpool, but 65 for Manchester City. Ballon d'Or, by the way. Do you know what? Let's digress, because why not? The Ballon d'Or has been won by... They're all new gens, basically, but there's a few in here that really stood out for me as I was looking through. This guy here, Mike Steven Sunkal, between the years of 2096 and 2102, this guy won it a whole load of times, playing for Liverpool, look, as, I assume, a striker, because he scored 320 goals in 437 games for them. A German striker. There was another couple, Davide Gut won it lots of times, playing for Atletico Madrid. Scored 206 goals in 402 games. Where's Davide Gut from? He was Swiss. That's a fun one. Ryan Taylor. This guy here, look, Morgan Jaeger for Bayern Munich won it a load of times. Was that 6 times in a row there, look. He scored 157. He played for Bournemouth, Southampton, and then Bayern Munich, where he became... Maybe he's a midfielder, actually. That's like 1 in 2 rather than 2 in 3, which is kind of what the other players had, isn't it? Interesting anyway. There's so much history that we could just dive into, but that is very much digressing. What I'm going to go and do now is hopefully turn around this poor form, but go and play through January. If there is any transfer business, I will be back at the end of January. If there's not, I'll probably see you either at our youth intake, which, by the way, we have had our preview. We've got 2 players that might be okay, a decent striker and a decent winger. So fingers crossed for that. It does list it as a golden generation, but we know that sometimes that doesn't quite mean really good players. But let's hope. I'll either be back at the end of the season or maybe back for this intake if it's pretty good. Either way, let's go find out and I'll see you whenever. Okay, then it is the end of January and I am back now specifically because we've had a bit of a mad Jan, actually. We've spent some money and we've brought some serious money into the club. This is what has gone down and this is why I'm back to tell you about it. We've sold Abel. I thought it might happen. I was worried that it was going to happen. Liverpool were the team in the end. It wasn't a Saudi team. It was Liverpool, one of the most successful teams in this 100-year history that we've got now, who came in and bought him for £29.5 million. We are so sad to see him go. What a player he was in our season and a half that we got out of him. £1.5 million he cost us, £29.5 million. His release clause, I'm now kicking myself thinking it should have been way higher, especially when you look at his value now at Liverpool, where he's valued at about £100 million. What a player we unearthed, by the way. We just got this guy for 1.5 million. These guys exist in this universe. Because we don't know anything about any of the players, there are actual serious bargains. He was playing in the 2nd division in Spain for Levante, came through at Levante, but hadn't played that many games either. Pick him up for 1.5 million. He scores 26 in a season. He scores 9 in half a season here. And now he's gone to Liverpool. So, of course, this meant that we had to go and replace him. And how do you go and replace a player that has had such brilliant output for you? The data is so amazing with him. Well, you go to the data again and you look for a player that is going to try and reproduce everything that he's been able to do. So what I actually thought about was, what is it about Abel that makes him so good? And one of the things was the fact that he's massive. So one of the things that I factored into my search for a replacement was I wanted a tall player. I wanted a player that was going to be able to play on the left wing, be tall, maybe get those back post headers, because he did actually win a fair amount of headers over the course of his career with us. Even in the 2 games, I know it's a very small sample size, but even in the 2 games for Liverpool so far, he's got a really high headers won percentage for a player that plays on the wing. So I factored that in and I came up with a shortlist, of course. Now, that shortlist was actually quite a long list. It included 100 players that I felt were suitable to come in and replace Abel. Now, there is a player that stood out completely out of these players. You may have just seen his name on the transfers in, because I did end up actually going and signing him. And that was this man who scored the best as an attacking forward. Remember, I know he plays on the wing, but he's really playing as a striker. It's an inside forward. He is basically a 3rd attacker in our 3 that play there. And that's why he scored so many goals for us, Abel. So he scored the best on being an attacking forward. He was actually 100th percentile on that here. He also scored one of the highest for XG per 90. Now, there was a couple of players that were above him. However, those players hadn't played at least 1,000 minutes so far this season. So I filtered those guys out. I wanted some actual data behind these guys so that we could know that he was going to be a sure thing. And that best performer was this man here, Mohamed Alawi. Now, Mohamed Alawi plays for Raja Casablanca, which is in Morocco. Now, of course, that is something to bear in mind here. We talked about it earlier, didn't we? The multiplier that you'd attach to the Moroccan league isn't going to be as high as somebody who's doing it in Spain, for example. However, the numbers look so good for him, and he had a transfer value of around 5.6 million to 7 million pounds. And that tells you, with a bit of knowledge of Football Manager, that tells you that actually he must be quite good, because the league reputation is lower, the club reputation is lower. That tends to mean that transfer values are lower. All of this in mind, with his brilliant data and numbers behind him and that transfer value, I felt like this was our guy, and he's going to be worth a try. So I signed him. I signed him from Raja Casablanca. Mohamed Alawi came in to replace Abel as our left winger for 4.7 million pounds. Here he is, and in the 3 games that he's played for us so far, he's performed pretty well. He's got himself a goal, he's got himself an assist. He's got an 8.15 average rating. Off the bat, it looks very much like we've unearthed an amazing replacement for Abel. In fact, his value shot up to 60 to 68 million pounds. Look, he's also 6'4", which you can actually say about all of the players that were on that list. That I call it a short list, but it's actually a long list because it was one of the filters that I used when I was searching for a player on player search over here. However, Football Manager doesn't like to reward you when you manage to do amazing things like this, does it? It likes to kick you right in the nudges, in fact, and that's what happened here. After 3 games, look, in January, Mohamed Alawi, I was so chuffed with myself. I was so excited to show you this. Like, the whole process, and I was like, it's worked. We've just replaced Abel with this guy. Football Manager had other ideas, and in that 3rd game that he played, he did his cruciate ligaments, and he's out for 6 to 8 months. Like, he's actually done his ACL, which is just sad, really, isn't it? So that left us without Abel, and now without Alawi, actually left us really short at left wing. So I had to really quickly go and scramble around to try and find a replacement. So I did bring in a replacement, and that was David Romero. Again, I asked the director of football to give us a loan potential. It found David Romero, who actually kind of fits in terms of a profile as well. He's 6'2", look. Hasn't played much football at all for Wolves, but did perform all right when he did play. Look, a good average rating. He's going to come in and be our left winger in place of Alawi until Alawi comes back from injury, and then Romero probably will go back to Wolves at the end of his loan. So I do feel like I've done a good job of, one, replacing Abel and then replacing Alawi. I think we're sorted at left wing, but alongside this, I said it was a bit of a mad January. We also had Danny Ogle going to China. His release clause was triggered, £10 million, and he was sold to Henan Songshan Longmen. They were actually linked with him before. They did come in with a bid on the 5th. Look, he's gone. So that meant I needed a new centre-back. So I signed Elliot Steele. You'll remember Elliot Steele. He was here with us on loan last season. Did great. In terms of looking for data, that half a season loan was really good for us. Remember, he got recalled and then went to Brentford. He was back at Sunderland. Then he'd been on loan at Burnley. They'd probably recalled him because that seems to be what Sunderland do. He was playing in the Championship. I know he's good. He's homegrown. We know the player. He costs less than Danny Ogle. I signed him for £8.25 million. Guess what? He can't play. He's played for 2 teams already this season. I'm an idiot, but also, why doesn't Football Manager say this to you? Maybe it does. Maybe I missed it. I feel like it should pop up on transfer stuff. Or maybe it should even be a big pop-up that says, don't sign him. It's just not something that really, when you play in the game, it's not something that really crosses your mind. Obviously, in real life, this would be something you'd know all about. You'd hope, wouldn't you? So I signed Elliot Steele for £8 million, and I can't play him until next season. So that sucks. So then, again, guess what I did? I went to the loan market and asked for a loan, and we're paying £2.7 million to loan Pablo Olmo from Inter Milan. He looks pretty good. The director of football recommended him, so he's going to come in and be one of our centre-backs. It's been a wild, silly January transfer window. Quite a lot of money spent, but of course we actually brought in way more with the sales of Abel and Danny Ogle. Actually, which does mean, by the way, overall, look, we have sold players for £79 million and paid £53 million in transfer spend. So we have turned a profit overall in that regard, which is something I do want to keep an eye on and try to do. We've also been quite good on the pitch, actually. It's been a very busy month in terms of games too. We have, I mean, one of them, look, we beat Sunderland 7-0. That's for selling us a player that can't play for us. Have that, Sunderland. 7-0 winning that. We lost to Palace in the last game. But before that, look, it was like 7 games in a row without losing. Going through in the FA Cup, going through in the EFL Cup semi-final, hopefully. It looks like we may get ourselves a cup final here because we're 3-2 up against Newcastle. If we can do okay in that second leg, we will have a Wembley final, even though the Premier League campaign is pretty meh. We're 13th in the league after 24 games. We're 7 points clear of relegation. We're not going to get relegated. I don't know. It'd be lovely to push up this league and finish about 10th. I just feel like some of the games we've got coming up, there's going to be some games we're going to lose here. Again, look, it's Liverpool, it's Arsenal, it's Villa who are doing great this year. It's Spurs, it's Chelsea, it's Manchester City, it's Manchester United. It's tough is what it is. So I'm fully expecting to finish about 13th, to be honest. And what I'm really hoping is we can go and get ourselves a cup win. That would be lovely. But I love this. It's such a weird challenge. I actually love it when a release clause is triggered of one of your players and it puts you into a position where you have to act and you have to go and find a replacement and you have to spend money. It's obviously a bad thing to happen, but it does make the game quite fun. I don't know if that's just me being weird, but it's something I genuinely enjoy. It's why I don't always completely refuse to put release clauses in, because I think it just adds an element to the game that is, I don't know, realistic, fun. So anyway, I think I'll continue to do that, but try and be maybe a bit more careful. Right now, though, I'm going to go until the end of the season, I think. If the youth intake is really good, maybe we'll be back for that, but probably we'll be back at the end of the season to see how we finish up this campaign See if we can go win that cup as well. I'll see you in May. Okay then, welcome to the end of the season. It's the 22nd of May. We finished 14th. Now, I said I was expecting us to finish 13th. It's actually slightly worse than that. We finish our season on 42 points, which it gets us past that cutoff, that 40-point magic number to avoid relegation. We were never really under threat of it, though. Chelsea actually, look, almost putting themselves into a relegation position right at the end. They didn't win any of their they lost all of their last 5 games. They finished 1 point above West Ham, Sunderland, and Preston. Were those the 3? Those are 2 of the 3 teams that came up. Sunderland were already up. Of course, we were the 3rd team, weren't we? But 2 of the other teams that came up with us have been relegated. I actually want to check who's coming up to the Championship now from the league below. It's Leeds have won the league with Bournemouth in 2nd, and then it will be Brighton, Watford, Swansea, or Coventry that are going to come up. Brighton back down here. There's no real big movers between the leagues. Like looking at the Championship, looking at the Premier League, there's no like real surprises of teams, is there? Really? Obviously, there's 1 or 2 like Hull doing quite well, but generally Cardiff in the top flight, but Preston, I suppose. Generally, it's kind of samey, even though we're 100 years in the future, isn't it? What isn't samey is the fact that Spurs won the league this year. 92 points from them. Villa 2nd. Man City and Liverpool, despite their domination, look, Spurs have won the league now, which is quite fun. But I know, looking at this screen, what you're actually seeing is none of that. You're noticing that it says Europa Conference League next to our name. That is because we did it, ladies and gentlemen. We won the EFL Cup this year. We beat Spurs in that final as well. It was Harry Freeman with 2 goals. And this one, I feel vindicated with this one. Junior Diamande with the other goal in it. He's had a great season. I'll show you the goals in this one too, because we've won ourselves a cup. It's our first major piece of silverware since 2011, I think it was. We looked at that in the first episode, didn't we? It was the Carling Cup then. It's the Carabao Cup now. There's Freeman's 2nd goal. And then at the end here, look, that was to make it 2-0. I think Spurs scored now. Yeah. Spurs get a goal back, look. Dosso into Chetchi with the goal there. But then here's Diamande with his lovely, beautiful, shiny, bald head, getting himself into the box. There he is, smashing it in, look, our number 8. Beautiful kits, by the way. Very nice, aren't they? That was the end of our goal scoring action. Spurs got another goal back here. It was Chetchi again, look. Smashed it in past Keedle. We got ourselves a cup win. We've got ourselves a trophy. We are going to be in the Premier League next year. We've got ourselves into Europe somehow. I have no idea how that European campaign is going to go. Conference League, maybe we've got a chance. Maybe. I don't know if it's also going to make any type of difference with our reputation. Will we be able to attract better players because we're in the Conference League? Probably not, if we're going to be honest. But looking at the squad, this is where things stand at the moment. Before we go into our 3rd season transfer business, things are as follows. Keedle, still our goalkeeper. Another good season. However, he's very unhappy. He wants to get in the England team, and he's wanted by Bournemouth and Manchester United. I am braced for bids when it comes to Keedle. I would like to keep him because he's English and because he thinks he's got a chance to get in the England team. I think he must be quite good thinking about that. However, if he's unhappy, maybe we need to think about trying to find a replacement. We'll see. I'd like to keep the best part of the rest of the team together, if I'm honest. I know I said this before, but this is kind of where I only want to do a few transfers and kind of incremental improvements so that we can really get to know these players. Maybe it's about time I should go and give real faces to the likes of Nakayama and Takamura. I know that a lot of you have been asking that. Can the new gens have faces? Until we've got a settled team, until they're save heroes, which is kind of what I called them, it's a lot of extra faff for me to do. Although I get it. I kind of know why you want that to happen. So maybe at some point is what I'm thinking. Maybe if I find myself some time, maybe Nakayama, Takamura, Campari, Diamande, Farisar. Yeah, maybe. I'll think about it. The rest of that team, though, Rivas can definitely stay. Olmo's going to go, but Elliot Steele's here for next year once we can register him, which would be fun. That's always a nice little bonus, isn't it? Takamura, of course. Takamura's wanted, by the way, by Bournemouth, so we will need to think about that one too. Campari, ready to go, ready to continue. He's had a good season. Diamande got 16 goals, 9 assists. Look, lovely bit of recruitment, that. Really happy with what we've managed to do with him. That's why we signed him. He had really good numbers with goal contributions and things, and he's done great for us this year. Arnau's done good too, 16 assists. David Romero, last minute, but he'll probably come out, and Alawi will come back in once he's back. He's got another 4 months still to go because he got injured in January, so it's going to be a long old injury that he's probably not even going to be back. I mean, it's 6 weeks to 4 months, but let's give him 2. Let's call it 3 months, and he'll be back in maybe the start of the season, August, possibly. We'll see. Then Harry Freeman and Farisar both score goals. Farisar got 10 goals, 21 goals from Freeman, both wanted. And Harry Freeman's actually upset at the moment because of poor dressing room atmosphere. This does keep happening because we do keep going on runs without winning games. Like we lost 8-3 to Manchester United here. We lost 5-0 to Newcastle, lost 4-1 to Hull, and then won 5-1 against Nottingham Forest. We're a weird team. I also think we're a young team that can get better, maybe with 1 or 2 improvements in it. We'll see. I think we've held our own this year, and that's all that we could really hope for. I guess now what's next is that I go back into that transfer window and I try and improve things. We've got loads of money. We've got £56 million to go and spend, loads of wage budget. So the start of the next video should be an interesting one. Thank you very much for watching today. I really hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got to the end, my challenge for you is I want you to create a chant for one of our players. The best one gets pinned. That literally just came to me this second as an idea. Best player chant for one of our players in this squad gets their comment pinned, and you'll be celebrated for years, probably. Anyway, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. See you later. Bye-bye.